Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Great to see everyone here. We're seeing some more people trickle in, but we're excited to talk with you. So give me 10 seconds just to make sure I've got everything enabled and everybody is in, and then we will get started. All right. Okay. Thanks again for being here. We're really excited to have you with us. We're going to talk about winning with knowledge. We're talking about content management in an AI world and how you can ultimately turn content into knowledge, which is one of the dreams of AI, but use that in a way that sets you up to win more bids. So we're really excited you're here and look forward to talking with everyone today. I'd like to introduce our speakers. Vishwas Lele is the CEO and co-founder of pWin. He has over 3 decades of experience in multiple industries, tech, software, data, AI, and over 2 decades in the GovCon and proposal BD industries. He's a highly respected and regarded speaker across those different areas. He's also an author, also an educator who puts out classes. And so we're really excited, Vishwas, for you to be here today. Kelson Forsgren is the Vice President of Program Development at Shipley Associates, where he leads strategic initiatives in proposal development, virtual collaboration, and training programs. He has nearly 3 decades of experience in BD and proposal operations, has managed large pursuits, built virtual proposal centers, and advanced content management and process discipline across teams, which is going to be really relevant for our conversation today. I'm Drew Hartley. I'm the SVP of Solutions Engineering here at pWin. I get to spend a lot of time talking to companies of all different shapes and sizes who are ultimately trying to win more and use AI to help them do that. And I get to spend a lot of time talking about why we think pWin is the right platform for them to help them do that. So Vishwas, Kelson, thank you for being here. I don't think I need to spend much time introducing Shipley Associates. I think almost everybody I've ever talked to knows about them, but just in case you've been hiding under a rock, Shipley's been at the forefront of the capture and proposal industry for more than 50 years, literally wrote the book on how to do it and continue to help companies win through training, consulting, and in the last few years, AI services. So we're excited to have Shipley represented here. pWin.ai, our mission is to enable capture and proposal teams to pursue, bid on, and win opportunities using our AI native platform. It's built from the ground up with AI and embedded with Shipley best practices to ultimately create content that's aligned with how evaluators score, ultimately giving our clients the best, an edge to ultimately win more. Shipley and pWin are exclusive partners, which is a big deal. And we work together to help our customers ultimately win more through the pWin platform, but also through a combined support team effort where we work with our customers to ultimately use the tool and look at other proposal processes to improve. So enough about who we are. Let's start to jump into the meat of the conversation today. Kelson, I'd like to start with you. As your introduction alluded to, you've helped hundreds of organizations and customers mature their content processes. So before we even start to even touch on AI, maybe we just level set, what is content management in a proposal world?
Yeah, I'm glad you put the context in a proposal world, because the aspect of content management, which may also be termed knowledge management, which has a definition outside of proposals as well. But it's basically the bringing together all the information that you have available that you can use for proposal responses. So as it says on the slide, to create, then organize, maintain, and govern reusable proposal capture content. So it stays current, it stays usable, it stays accurate and reflective of what your company does, even if with companies that are teaming with other partners and that kind of a thing. So it's important to have information readily available, readily accessible, to be able to use especially in the content and the context that we're using it now with generative AI tools. So as it shows here on the screen, a couple of things about maybe things that we were looking at before. Maybe some of you are old enough to have prepared binders of proposals and put them on shelves in a library in your office or something like that. You'd go along the line occasionally and look at the spines and see if you could recognize a project that would be useful for this upcoming proposal or something. Pull it off the shelf and try to go use it that way. Of course, with the advent of automation tools and things that have occurred, databases and other digital storage repositories were also very are now more valuable, and things that a lot of us are still using anyway, as we have files that we are, maybe there's a process that we have that we're, as soon as a proposal is submitted, it goes into the virtual library, whether it be a SharePoint site or Google Docs or something like that, where it can reside electronically, and we can go surface it again electronically. So some of the activities that we were doing beforehand, a manual endeavor, looking at tagging, or some way of being able to keep the latest information available, migrating that to automated activities with, as I mentioned, databases and other storage repositories. Some of that information is still valuable in our AI response or our AI tools, but how our repositories are structured are a little bit different. We do things based on folders and things like that we understand as humans. Okay, that's past performance, and I'm going to go find past performance there. The AI tools can do things a little bit differently and can access things more quickly, more readily, and also may help us find additional information that we may not be able to find linearly in some of the files that we look through. So that's one of the key benefits of using something that is more generative as far as our content management is concerned.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that overview. I think it's so interesting to talk to so many different customers and see where they are from like an understanding and implementation of content management. So thanks for giving us that baseline. Excited to talk more about that as we go. Vishwas, I'd like to pass it over to you now. And so content management has been true before AI, but it is more important now than even before AI. We often hear phrases like garbage in, garbage out. So I'm just curious, on your perspective, what risks do poor content management practices introduce for teams using AI? And then on the flip side, what do you notice about customers who have good content management practices?
Yeah, thank you, Drew, and thank you, Kelson. I have to tell you that I attended at the PNP conference. Kelson, I think you were speaking about content management. It was a very well-attended session, and I learned a lot from that. A lot of audience questions about that. That's what prompted us to bring you and join with you in this session. So, Drew, to your question, exactly what Kelson said. The challenge with generative AI is it's not garbage in, garbage out anymore. It's garbage in, garbage out multiplied by 10, because AI is super fast, and if you do not put the time in making your knowledge repository consistent, and we will talk about the challenges you may have. AI is very good at taking whatever content, producing a content which looks at the surface quite good, grammatically correct, reads well sentences, but ultimately means nothing. So we have to be very careful about content management and some of the challenges that you run into, and we will look into some of the details of this. That as you are ingesting the content, ultimately this content becomes the context for your AI. Right? AI does not know how you've responded in the past. AI does not know your past performance capabilities, does not know your solutioning strategies. So think of your knowledge repository or your content as really the context into the AI models. And imagine if this context is not set appropriately. So you don't have content that can be searched. I'm trying to write about CMMC2, let's say, which is of course a requirement at DoD. If that content is not tagged appropriately, you'll have to look through content and not be able to find really the most important gold copy version that you have to say about CMMC2. Also, if there are gaps in your content, then there are chances that AI can hallucinate in that case because you've asked it to meet certain requirements. It's just not able to get enough context. So that's the other challenge. We obviously talked about the garbage in, garbage out. Also, keep in mind that if you are not looking at and validating the content that is going into your content library, and you are not thinking about, so I get a paragraph or a page about a past performance, and that past performance is largely about platitudes. Hey, we did a great job at this agency, and not really metrics driven past performance. What will end up happening ultimately is the content that AI writes is going to be very vanilla, very generic. So these are some of the challenges that you will run into if you have not had good content management practices about the content that goes into your knowledge repository or content management system. Bro.
Yeah, thanks, Vishwas. So hopefully that all makes sense. We're going to move now into a time of speaking about some of the challenges and some of our tips when it comes to content management. I will say a couple things we should say up front. One, the Q&A tab of this webinar is enabled. We are going to take questions at the end. So we're going to go through the content first. If you have questions, please use that tab. Or at the end, when we get to the Q&A portion, we'll allow people to raise hands and ask live questions as well. So 2 ways for you to get your questions over to us so we can answer them, assuming we have time. Okay, now let's weave together sort of that baseline of content management with some tips that we have for the audience as they think about content management for their companies. Kelson, we'll start with you. And so you've worked, again, closely with a lot of different companies and customers. So maybe we just start about what a content management process looks like. So a little bit more depth than just sort of the broad definition. How do you think teams should think about a content management process? How do they make it repeatable, scalable? And maybe what are some challenges that you see out there?
Yeah, it's an important part, like Vishwas has mentioned before, that having in controlling and in handling and in working with content, it's important that we it's not just a black box type of thing that we may be using along the way or trying to reach it, or somebody can help us find something. We bring to the surface how to use content management and how it fits into our overall proposal or business development process is critical. It's important to doing that. It's beneficial to have defined steps and things along the way that allow us to do things repeatable. Maybe even do some more things at scale, especially when we're using AI tools, than maybe just having the librarian that we used to go ask in the library, can you find this for me? So bringing that to the surface, having something that helps us define how we acquire content, where it comes from, who's responsible for it, how we track it, how we maintain it. Do we age things out? Do we look at usability? Those types of things to be able to help us maintain content flowing through the business development process, as well as making sure that the quality is good at whenever we may dip in to use it at any period of time. So like it says on here about why it matters, accuracy and readiness are really important and critical. It helps you to, it's not something where we can just go dump a bunch of stuff. Oh, that repository just has all of our proposals, even things that we did 20 years ago. Let's just throw it all in. That will not be helpful in being able to have accessing usable things. Yeah, AI can go find something if you're directing it properly, but still there's value in having some structure in how things are put together and how things are updated and how things are curated and going forward. And then so you avoid this every 6 or 12 months or never updating stuff. Oh man, that iteration was 3 teams ago. We've been acquired, reacquired, we've joined somebody, we bought somebody. All that stuff is old stuff. So it's valuable to have a specific process that is in the mind of the participants about how content is accessed and used. So some of the ways to look at that, how to do it, it says align with the life cycle model here. So there are a lot of models out there. Shipley has a methodology. Others may have other business process types of models. By fitting in and making sure that how content is handled throughout that lifecycle process will help to ensure that it's visible and evident to those using the process, and becomes more, of a long-term activity going forward. Talking a little bit about classifying content. That's deciding what types of information, not just a full-up proposal only, but you may have past performance that could be separated and collated together. That's kind of a classification that you could do, or you could do executive summaries, or you could do win themes that may be applicable to a certain level of your audience or your client base, things like that help to separate and parse and keep things easily manageable and consolidated for the human part as well as the AI part. So then talks about prioritizing hygiene and being able to improve things incrementally. We're not always going to have the opportunity or time to put everything together at the start and not have other things to be able to do it. We may not be able to have a pure, clean starting point, but we can get there in pieces and be starting to use content and then move other things in as we see what works best and what doesn't work, what works for our teams, what works for the systems that we're using. But it is important to keep that in the forefront. It's kind of like, my wife's been making sourdough bread, and it's important every day that you interact with that and feeding it some more in order to be able to have it be usable in whatever you may be doing with the breads you're making. So maybe not every day, but definitely have a specific cadence for reviewing and maintaining and keeping your content up to date. So process is important, tied into the things that you're currently doing, establishing metrics for it, access to it, who can touch it, who can work with it, who needs to validate it. Those types of things are all valuable and will make your content more usable for a longer period of time.
Yeah, that was great. I love the sourdough analogy. That's a good one. I think talking to a lot of customers, I would say, I think everybody knows that this is an important process, but the majority, and I'd rather argue the large majority, know that they don't have a real living process, right? And so it is interesting as people, I think, understand why using AI on top of the content they have can present challenges, to see how people sort of think about that. And we've had a number of people who said, well, let's talk again in 1 year, because we need 1 year to get our content right. I like your point that says it's more about getting started, and something continuous and small, like caring for sourdough starter. So I appreciate that context. Let's go one level deeper into that process with you, Kelson. You mentioned a little bit, I think, about the people. I'm curious, what thoughts do you have on making sure that not only do you have a process, but there's clarity around who is responsible for different aspects of that process?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I think is also overlooked, apart from the whole process aspect and having it be a process, is the thought that all this work is admin work. It's all, someone can do it part-time, and that may be the case in different companies where you're wearing a lot of hats anyway. But there's value in having specific activities defined and set aside so these types of things are accomplished by these types of individuals. So there's some roles specific down there that you could have content managers, those that may be content creators, definitely having reviewers that help to keep things current and updated, especially if you are dealing with software solutions or things like that, where there are going to be product changes and updates that need to be reflected in your content. And having SMEs that help you do that will be important. But the aspect of having someone designated to own the process, own the interactions, be accountable for content clarity, cleanliness, things like that, is important for, as we've talked about before, with the process. But it also helps with establishing, ultimately, in several companies, this is actually a designated team and there are people dedicated full-time to upkeep of content and material for use in business development or proposals, and even in marketing things. So having some eyes on it consistently, people that understand it and that use it, and then also can collaborate with other sales teams or account teams or other teams that want to come and use the information, whether it be for proposals or other purposes, white papers, other presentations. They're not left alone. They can interact with individuals that can help them find what they need and be able to use it that way. And then another component of it that I think is important is that this team should be valued as strategic partners in this business development process, because if they're providing enhanced accessibility to information, they can help you find things faster, more quickly, things that will work better. There are some companies that have a lot of questionnaires that they need to respond to. And so there's already a repository that has one for matchup on some questionnaires. So why not leverage that already and then work on the ones that don't have specific answers? It reduces that time commitment and helps to make any information that you want to take proactively to your customers available to you and accessible, and more confident in the clarity of the communication going out. So for people having specific tasks assigned and being responsible, you can use a RACI chart, things like that, even to make it more clear for those that would be involved in any level. I think it's valuable to have those clear assignments to be able to make sure everybody knows who's doing what, have that available, have that clear, and then being that kind of the last bullet point there on how to do it. That could be seen as kind of a go-between for the information coming from Capture about clients, about industries, things like that, and then working specifically on the downstream side for proposals for what information can be then integrated effectively and successfully in things going forward. So it's not a widget shop. It is something that we can be strategic partners in this process and working with our business development teams.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's so key to not have only a process, but actually have clear assignments. Otherwise, there's nobody to hold accountable, and things aren't going to get done. So, okay, thanks, Kelson. Let's shift now from more of that process focus to now the content side of things. So, Kelson, we'll come back to you. How do you advise teams to build their knowledge repositories with content, whether that's new content or sort of curating content over time?
It is good to be able to start and to select items that will be of most value soonest. One of the things that we do, even especially in our partnership here with pWin, is to, for example, help companies select a single proposal, or maybe a group of proposals that are all kind of about the same thing, about the same product or something like that, and then say, okay, now for this request for proposal, or this request for information, or request for quote, or tender, or whatever it may be, what are the things that we're going to need to pull together to answer and respond to that, and then use that as the baseline, as the template. Okay, here's the information we would need on past performance. Let's go make sure that is included in our repository. Here's where we have teaming partners. Let's make sure that we've got information that maybe we keep some of that separate, because we don't want AI to say or claim that all of our partners, all of their capabilities are our capabilities specifically. Let's look at solution responses. Let's look at information that has come back from other projects or contracts that we have that we may be able to leverage as proof points and things going forward. So if you have this track that is laid out with, okay, here's a proposal we're looking at doing, we're looking at responding to, what do we need to put into our repository to be able to help us get to the solution and to the submittal, then that creates a path for us to be able to get things added in. So if we have we look at how things are structured, how things are organized, so that we can continue to augment those repositories, inside the bigger repository. So we want to make sure we're adding the right stuff, not just anything and everything. We've talked a little bit about that before. Maybe you have a cutoff date as to what things might be valuable. So keep things current that way. And then just continuing to build from there and from that. So practicing on a smaller set of information is helpful in going forward. You can use, as part of your interaction with any SMEs, with solution stuff, you can, as things are developed and created there, you can add that in. You'll want to, we'll talk about duplication stuff in a little bit that Vishwas will take care of. But look at the things that are going to be valuable instead of the whole forest. Well, that's valuable. It ends up being a forest. But looking at, okay, here's a tree we're targeting. That may not be the right use of this terminology, but anyway, let's go after this opportunity. What are we going to need for that? Let's take care of that first, and then let's leverage this to be usable across other activities. So keep it clean, keep it accurate, be much better use for you going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. And one of the things we talk with our customers about is, hey, can I only use pWin? So pWin operates inside of secure enclave, and so you can use that to create a lot of content. What about external content? And you can always use an external tool for that. Don't take your IP into those tools, but there's so many tools out there to be able to help you write content, which is really valuable. But making sure that you don't blindly pull that content, throw it into a knowledge repository or in whatever structure that you use to reuse content without having somebody who has the accountability and perspective to validate that and make sure that that is good content and be able to bring that in. So just one sort of tip or trick is to use those tools. There's so many tools out there today, but make sure you're still always validating that content before it enters into your corpus of content. All right, let's now talk about the idea of duplicates. So Vishwas, let's come over to you now. One of the tips I've heard you talk to lots of customers about is this idea of removing duplicates or redundant content. I would love to hear you explain why they need to do that, because there's a technical reason to that that is important in an AI world, and any other tips you have about removing content.
Yeah. In my mind, removing the duplicates from your content is foundational, and Kelson talked about a gold copy, which was alluding to the same idea. And I want to give our listeners an idea about why duplicates are such a problem. So, as I mentioned earlier in my previous slide, that think of your knowledge repository, your content management system, as the context that is going into the AI models. AI models, once again, don't know you, don't know your repository, don't know your past performances. So let's say you've instructed AI to write a certain section, and now it needs context. And let's say you have this information, and let's just say that there's a solutioning strategy, and over the years you've just made tiny tweaks to that solutioning strategy and just had multiple copies of that lying around. And now AI wants to write about this section using the solutioning strategy that I talked about. It is going to go into the knowledge repository and say, hey, give me all the information that you have about the solutioning strategy. And because there are duplicates, it is going to get 5 or 10 responses, which are almost alike with some minor differences in them. And that causes multiple problems. One is, it is confusing AI into thinking somehow that you are overemphasizing this particular strategy. And that's a problem. That was not what you meant. These are just poor content management practices. You have multiple copies of this document lying around, not enough version control applied. So as a result, you're telling AI there's some overemphasis implied, which is not the case. The other bigger challenge is that over the years, you may have developed different kinds of solutions which may be needed for this particular RFP response. And because you have duplicates, you return 5 duplicates and you're not getting the diversity of the strategies that you need in order to create the best possible solution, right? Ultimately, these AI models can recommend a draft, and if you don't have the diversity of choices in terms of solutions, you're going to be logged into just one solution because of the overemphasis that was placed on that particular solution. So there are other things that we will talk about, but duplicates are really important. And fortunately, there are tools, AI tools, machine learning tools out there that can help you with this task. And Kelson talked about how he had binders with looking at the spines. There are tools out there that can allow you to say these 2 documents are very close to each other. Maybe you should figure out that go take this version. And some of these things can be handled by the content management practices and the processes and roles that Kelson was talking about as well. So just to summarize, Drew, that important to make sure you have a golden copy, make sure that you're running pre-ingestion checks and you're automating to the extent possible deduplication of these documents. Drew?
Yep. Thanks, Vishwas. And we'll talk a little bit more about pWin's knowledge repository and content management capabilities, but this concept is something that we're looking into, bringing more and more of this analysis of content to help customers do it in a more intelligent solution approach as well. All right, Vishwas, we'll stick with you. So you talked about removing duplicates. There's also content that just gets old over time or outdated. How do you advise teams on how to think about removing content, when to do it, how to do it?
Yeah, and this goes back to what Kelson was talking about, so I'm not going to repeat that, but obviously you need to have a process to make sure that you have the most appropriate, accurate content in your knowledge repository so that AI has access to the latest and greatest content. We have talked about this earlier. But AI is helping you with maintaining this content and giving you insight into what content is truly relevant. So one, of course, is that you have some sort of a process and you're saying, oh, here are my past performances, and I work with these agencies, and typically the agencies have, if you look at the FAR rules, maybe there's a 3-year rule about how far back you can go in terms of using the past performance. And I know that there are exclusions there, in some cases allowed you to use past performances up to 6 years old. So of course there are those rules that you have to keep in mind as you're ingesting and you're going through this periodic review and cleanup of your documents. But AI actually brings in a few other things which are very helpful to keep your knowledge repository consistent and useful. And let me talk about that for a moment. So beyond the expiration dates, let's say you're now generating a draft based on the content. You can track how often is this content being used? When was this content used the last time? How much of this content got used? These are attributes that now AI systems can give you, which are very important in you figuring out, yes, this content is relevant, but this content was never used in any of the draft generation for 2 years. Maybe for compliance reasons, you want to move that content to an archive because you still want to have that content, but you can reduce the size of your active repository so that AI can just find that content easily and quickly. So think about this whole notion of a freshness score. It's not just about the expiration in terms of the FAR rules, but it is also about the effectiveness of that content. How often is it getting used? And even more importantly, did it get used in a winning proposal? So these are all things that you should consider. This is something new that AI is bringing to the table. This was not easily available previously. So I encourage the listeners to think about this and apply these principles in their knowledge management strategies going forward. Drew?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Vishwas. So if we looked at those 5 sort of key areas, so obviously there's multiple tips really in each of those sections. Kelson, I'm just curious, how would you summarize that for the audience? What would you distill down to the audience today, sort of just to summarize or enumerate anything that you think was the most important? You're on mute, Kelson.
Figures, age old, right?
Not the first and not the last.
That's right. So, the value of establishing a repeatable process that is understood by everybody that's going to be using it is important. It raises the value of content to something that's more part of the flow and not just something that's ancillary. It's valuable to know that, define that, have that be clear. So you want to make sure your repository remains a trusted and current asset to your team. With assigning clean roles, it eliminates ambiguity, ensures accountability across your team, both within the team and then also with your capture and proposal stakeholders. It keeps things well defined and helps understand who to contact with questions about content. For adding and editing the right content, we want to make sure we're capturing when relevant, reusable materials that have been validated, like Vishwas has said, through actual proposal performance or subject matter expert review. That will help us make sure that that's clear and accurate. Removing duplicates. We want to reduce the search friction that occurs or that can occur. We always want to make sure our teams are accessing the most current and approved language for them to use, even if they're, especially actually, if they're not coming to your team as a gatekeeper to help them find stuff. If they want to just jump in without anybody's help, it's okay because the stuff in there is right and it's accurate. And then determining when to delete or archive, just a summary of have clear retention-based criteria, content age, relevance, the things that Vishwas went through. So we don't want to degrade the quality of the material that's in the system, especially if you've got the reputation of this is a trusted and viable and current asset. If you let some things slip on that front, then there may be people accessing stuff that's not accurate, and that can cause problems down the road. But just some good things to keep in mind. And obviously, we're available for any questions that you may have to help you in figuring that out.
Great. Thanks, Kelson. So I think it's appropriate now to go from sort of the process and the content and now think about, right, with one of the goals with your content is to now be able to use that, right? Turn that into knowledge and turn that ultimately into wins. So let's talk a little bit about technology. There are tools popping up left and right these days, so many different options. So Vishwas, I'd love to walk with you through some of these different sort of categories that are out there. Let's start with general purpose AI tools. That's your ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Claude, Copilot sort of types of tools. So Vishwas, how would you just describe these general purpose tools on how they can or can't help capture and proposal teams?
Yeah, I mean, these generic tools are great. I've subscribed to many of these myself, as I'm sure many of our listeners today do. They are great for ideation, for going out and saying, I'm trying to respond to this question. What are some of the latest trends? How would you respond to this? Or maybe I'm thinking about this. Can you find flaws in my approach? Or can you suggest alternatives? So great at doing that. But also, you have to be mindful of certain things. Many of these tools don't have, let's say, the CMMC compliance, so you are not allowed to upload any sensitive content. I'm not talking about your own content. I'm talking about the content that these agencies are putting out, which have a CUI demarcation, for example. And because these systems are not designed, at least as at the moment of recording of this webinar, they don't have that CMMC or FedRAMP moderate equivalence classification, which allows you to upload content. So you have to be very careful about that. Also keep in mind that these models are sourcing information from different sources. So you have to worry about the risk of hallucinations. So one of the things that you have to be careful about when you're using these tools, I know I myself, I'll get an answer from one of the generic tools. I'll try to understand it, but there's something that'll stand out that does not quite add up. And I'll maybe go to another generic tool and try to validate it. So there's a high risk of hallucination because they could be trained on data and could be trained on malicious content. And we've seen attacks like this where people put out malicious pages that get trained on, leading to incorrect or imprecise information. So the final point I'll make is that generic tools, by their very nature, as the name suggests, are generic. They're designed to help you with anything. They can help you with proposal writing. They can help you with email. They could help you with any discipline. And while there's a benefit to that wide aspect of applicability, but there are also things that you have to think about, like very specific terms that apply to proposals may not be exactly aligned with what those words that may be represented within these generic tools. And I'll give you one example that we've talked about in the past, like the word discriminator. And I'm sure Kelson can explain this better than I can, but discriminator, everybody knows what discriminator is in English language, but discriminator has a very specific meaning to proposal writers. And the generic tool, when you're sparring with them or when you're ideating with them, may not have that proposal writer meaning of that word, and you have to be careful about that as well. So good for many things, but be careful about how you use them.
Yeah, that's definitely right, Vishwas. Really good for some use cases. Frankly, not a great fit for other use cases. And so use it for ideation, research. They're awesome for that. For writing proposal content that is contextually appropriate for a solicitation and you, not the best solution. So let's go now to the next class of tools. We'll call these proposal-specific AI tools. And there's a number of them out there. How would you describe these tools that are trying to be domain specific to our industry? How would you describe those for the audience?
Yeah, we've seen in this industry, there have been these tools around, very helpful, have improved the productivity of proposal teams across the board, have been around for a decade or more. They've been very focused on creating a high quality content library of Q&A pairs, if you will. So if you are a product company, you're answering the same questions in a repeated manner, making sure that you have an authoritative source of this Q&A library. You have a process that Kelson talked about. As your product is going through these upgrade cycles, you're making sure that this Q&A library is reflective of those changes. And once you have this information, they can be very effective in answering these questions and getting these kinds of RFPs or questionnaires out very quickly. And they are very much designed for copy and paste, because these questions are fairly standard and you want to respond to them in a fairly standard manner. In fact, in some cases, there's the requirement for providing absolutely verbatim replies because there's a legal implication to that. So these tools do a great job of those kinds of questions. But when you are trying to write subjective RFPs that are very domain specific, that are not just cut and paste answers, but they're directionally based on your past performance about your core competencies, and they require you to pull together multiple ingredients that you may have as an organization, that's where these Q&A tools may not serve the need that you want. True?
Yeah, thanks. And I think there can be obviously a great alignment in the concept of some of these proposal tools. And we'll talk about pWin's unique approach in the next category. But I think one of the things that I've seen more and more coming up is that there is a lot of depth that goes into the proposal process, shredding a solicitation, identifying your proposal outlook, building that, and then associating each of your sections to the specific and complete text of that solicitation, because everything else is really built on top of that. And you see with these other AI tools and proposal AI tools, this generic, it only goes so deep, right? And so that can create a challenge in the content, which then means you still have to go line by line, word by word, fact check everything and ensure that there's, each section is sort of what you were hoping it would become. And so these proposal tools are great, and they have limits as well, which has informed us in our approach. Let's go to the next slide, which is really about our approach. We have obviously our proposal specific tool, a capture proposal BD specific tool, but our approach has been to go really deep. So I'm curious, Vishwas, can you share more about what that means for us in the pWin approach to address some of the challenges that we've talked about in the last two slides?
Yeah, so obviously from now we're talking about a purpose-built tool, which is highly domain specific. It is designed to address the complex workflows that are associated with the federal acquisition regulation type RFPs, which are very lengthy. There's a whole process to be followed all the way from collecting capture, we know, all the way before the RFP hit, and that's where the Shipley methodology stands out. So these tools have to be, it's not just about providing an answer. They have to be embedded in your workflow all the way through. And Drew, you talked about it when the RFP arrives, trying to understand the requirements, the evaluation criteria, the instructions, generating an outline, and then filling out the content plan. These are all stages in the workflow, and these tools and pWin.ai certainly does that. Since we are in the discussion has been focused about content repository, I should add that just simply taking your documents, unstructured documents, if you will, and just shredding them, for lack of a better word, just shredding them so that AI can find those fragments is not enough, right? You really need a business layer, if you will, on top of that unstructured data. And Kelson talked about it. You have to look at these documents and say, this is an executive summary, or this is a management plan. They could be called different things, but you have to classify them as such so that you can go find them. So that's another aspect of it, that do you create some sort of a structure, a business layer or an object structure on top of that unstructured content. So those are two main differences. And then, of course, once you have this knowledge repository, which is highly curated, has been organized to optimize the retrieval of content, that's when these tools can come in and start to retrieve this information and start taking your content plan and start writing this content in a manner that is consistent with best practices and, frankly, gold standard in proposal writing. What Shipley talks about in terms of customer centricity, starting to talk about acknowledging the problem, talking about the customer's problem, bolstering your response with past performances, all of those things that come together that require a deep understanding of that domain that goes with that. So Drew, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Vishwas. I would love to give the audience just like a little bit of a picture into what that means. Just go maybe what I call maybe one layer deeper into that concept, going back to this content management aspect and how we go deeper than the other tools on the market. What does that mean? Again, you bring your content to pWin of all different types, and pWin has what we call an ingestion engine or an analysis engine that blends AI and deep engineering practices to analyze all the content you bring to pWin. This is geared, again, to this industry. So a past performance is different than a past response, which is different than a capability, which is different than other types of content. And so it goes through this deep analysis step in the middle of the screen, and then it classifies it, tags it, categorizes it in as content types that are relevant for this industry. And why does that matter? At the end of the day, the more we understand your content, the better we can use it so that we're not producing generic content at best, or even worse than that, producing inaccurate content where we say something about a past response and treat it like a past performance, which would not be true, right? And so ultimately produce the highest content. As you use the tool, we have to understand your content and turn that content into knowledge, like we've talked about a couple times. And so this gives you a picture of essentially how pWin goes about doing that. And just to give you a little bit of an insight, which we'd love to show you live in a demo, which I'll talk about later. This is the view of our knowledge repository inside the application, where it shows all your files grouped by folders. And you can see in the middle of the screen, there's a classification column that represents the type that the pWin ingestion engine has associated that content with. And then on the right side of the screen, you can actually see the deep thinking and reasoning that pWin has done in analyzing that content. This is not some arbitrary, hey, let's treat all content the same type system, which there are many, many out there. At the end of the day, what does this mean for our different users? That across our customers, users of lots of different types can get value out of this because this knowledge repository, this knowledge layer, allows them to interact with your past content to be able to get some value out of it. So that could be BD users who are trying to use it for research and preparation and conversations. It could be for capture users who are trying to figure something out to help them shape an opportunity or respond to an opportunity. It could be proposal users who are trying to write better, more compliant content, or as technical SMEs who can use it to ultimately be able to provide their inputs in a better, but also faster way to where they're not the bottleneck for you to move forward in your process. So that's just a little bit about pWin. There's so much more about pWin. So before we move into Q&A, I'd like to highlight two things. One, pWin was recently selected as the only GovCon-focused RFP tool in Gartner's recent market guide, which you can see highlighted here. So if you have a Gartner subscription, which I'm sure many of you do, go check out that guide, and you'll see us represented there, which is a big accomplishment. And then second, on the right side of the screen, if you haven't seen pWin in action and you would like to, we'd love to do a demo for you and let you see the whole platform and all the value that it can provide for you to ultimately help you win more. So you can scan that QR code that's on the screen for another few seconds, another 30 seconds or so, or just go to our website, pWin.ai, or email us. But we'd love to set up time for you to see the platform, talk a lot about our knowledge repository, but all the features in the tool that are built on top of it, and we can talk about content management as well. I'll hang here for just a minute in case anybody's trying to scan that QR code and pulling out your phone. But now we will shift into Q&A time. And I see there are some that have come in. So give me just a second to go pull some up. All right, let's see. Vishwas, maybe this would be a good one for you. Is pWin.ai working towards any features that would be helpful to improve this burdensome process? For example, identification of content that scored well, automating review by authoritative sources and owners, approving approach changes, identifying content that's used frequently that's tailored for their various ways for different customers.
Yep, Meredith, great question. And we are definitely working. Drew showed you something that was recently added. We give you an intuition for what that document contains, why it was classified in a certain manner. And now you have greater ability to say, what is this document type? Maybe reclassify it. We are certainly working on that. Today, we also give you a citation report. So when you get a draft, you get references to all of the content that went into creating that content. We are going to take that information and make it available as part of analytics. So you can see all the places in the document that got hits as part of document generation. So more to come there, but we made a very important step forward with what Drew was showing you in terms of showing you the classification, giving you the ability to reclassify or adjust the content yourself in real time, not just a one-time activity.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Vishwas. Great question, Meredith. Kelson, I will ask this next question to you. Has the role of content managers evolved as AI has become more integrated in proposal and content operations? Are there any new skills or focus areas that you would say are essential?
Yes, I think it has evolved. Again, I mentioned that I think initially that it was more administrative, and people were treated as administrative people, librarian type of people. But the option now to have rapid access, I think it has increased the visibility of content management and those that are participating in it. and having the opportunity to be an online partner in helping find information for the account teams, proposal teams, capture teams. So the ability to summarize quickly, to be able to present and educate, to be able to offer solutions, brainstorm ideas with your account teams or sales teams. I think some of those skills about interpersonal communication and being able to track things and report things are a couple of additional characteristics that I think are essential for content management folks to have in their tool set beyond just the content itself.
Drew, can I just add something to what Kelson said, please? We had a very interesting conversation, Kelson, at the last APMP seminar, right? Because I was talking to a bunch of content managers, and there was a feeling that, hey, there are not too many sessions about content management because in one of the session, I can't remember exactly. Oh, well, AI can find the information wherever it is, so the content management function maybe is slightly less emphasized because all you have to do is give us the documents. AI is good at finding in any nook and cranny that your information is, so don't worry about it. And I obviously don't agree with that. And I got together with a few like-minded content managers and we sat there and talked about it. So some of the skills that are going to be very important for content managers, I think all of us have to look at the advent of generative AI and what it does to our job function and how can we be more effective with our job function. And a couple of ideas, and these are not my ideas alone, some of the ideas that we came along having this session on the side was, can we have a quick sample set of baseline RFPs or RFQs? And I think, Kelson, you talked about it, right? And then let's just run it through the system on a periodic basis. Let's calculate the readiness score for these, and then use that as a baseline to measure how good the content is. And that's one example of using technology to making sure that your content is up to date. And over a period of time, you can keep growing your sample set of these documents. So take these documents, run it through the system, see what you find, rate it against your content readiness, and see, oh, we are lacking in this content. Maybe we should go talk to subject matter experts. So that's one example. The other example I'll cite, and Kelson, you alluded to that as well. So who are the people who contributed to a certain section of solutioning? Can AI automatically create a library of these people that you can go to? And how do you create a network of these SMEs that you can go to? I can give you a few more examples, but the idea is that using AI, which is really good at some of these things, finding out if it has duplicate content or not, finding the classification, using that information to continue to automate the quality of your content is going to be an important function that content managers can do with the advent of AI.
Yeah, great points by both of you. I think there can be this sort of insinuation like, oh, right, like you said, Vishwas, our content managers' job's in trouble. I'd actually argue the opposite. They're becoming more important. I think whose job is in trouble is those people in most organizations who are the know-it-all people who have been around for a while, and they're the people you go to and ask them, hey, have we ever done this? And they're the one that knows, yeah, we did this time with this client, right? And typically some sort of an SME. I think their jobs aren't going away. They are serving another purpose with their full-time job, but they typically have this really important connection role, and everything's in their head. And I think content managers grow more important, and those people will grow less as the content management improves. So with that, our time is up. We appreciate everybody that joined today and gave us the time. We don't take that lightly. Vishwas, Kelson, thank you so much for joining and being part of the conversation. We look forward to having more conversations with you all as you all want or need, and about content management or pWin as a platform or AI, any way that we can be helpful. So with that, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.